Nice. Brought to you by Air Meat.
Brought to you.
Prosciutto. Pork cutlet. Pork cutlet.
Hi, everyone. Full moon talk, doggy moon.
Winter yet?
We're going into dog moon.
We're in dog moon.
This is
We're about halfway through the dog. Yeah,
We just did the
we
talk.
did the talk.
Hey, everybody, I'm not present ever.
Well, it's a dragon and a dog moon, so you can't expect much. It's all good.
We are drinking a 301 blend, courtesy of Zen and Tea. My dear friend Rachel brought it over personally today. And this tea is special because it's the last tea that I drank with my tea master before he passed. Peace be upon him. This particular blend has 4 varieties. Count that, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, a bad luck, but now it's good luck. 4 different teas in this tea. There's 2 raw, 2 ripe. The 2 raw are from the 70s. The 2 ripe are from the 80s. It's nearly 400 years of tea in this pot. And I put 2 bags in there, so nearly
59 minutes to ascension. Let's go, people.
So, Master Wong, peace be upon you. Today's dog moon is for you. How appropriate, yeah, loyalty.
Right, exactly. Yeah, quite deep. It's super deep. This moon. Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah. Jump right in there. Yeah. Oh, what kind of teapot do you have? I like your teapot.
This was gifted by a student, Musu. Musu? Sounds like the person that killed the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Well, I'm gonna call out the wood rat in the corner.
I don't know how a girl that doesn't want to be seen is now getting pointed out. She's blushing so hard. That's why the room is red.
So if I get lost in what I'm trying to talk about, I'll just be like, pan to the wood rat.
You won't even make noise when you laugh.
Right.
She's actually
Right.
dubbing that in.
Yeah.
Put a laugh track in after.
Yeah. She's laughing really hard,
Yeah. Welcome to, well, see, there's a lot. I'm Seanan Zook. I've been studying the Tongshu pretty steadily since Lao Luming died, and when he was teaching us in 2015. I've been the thing that I, just as a background, the thing that my introduction to Lu Ming and what it is he had to offer was with the Polestar series. So completed that between the end of the 2012 Water Dragon to and that completed at the end of 2013, the Water Snake. And then we moved into Tongshu studies, and we were doing all of those things until his death in 2015. Did you say? Blessed be upon him. It was his birthday recently, actually.
Yeah,
a couple weeks back. It was really a really incredibly lovely day, actually. So really grateful for what he's left behind, and so many of the practitioners. I think one of the things that's really special about this sitting here in this tea shop, and one of our first intentions was to talk more about like how do we do this, because there's plenty of weird, Ming was the ultimate weirdo. Like, he got up there and he told us about things we couldn't possibly imagine, and everybody was transformed with that. And that was like a really good way of like introducing stuff. But I think that I'm not trying to be the next weirdo, I guess. I mean, it's a sort of inevitable.
And that's exactly how you become the next
weirdo. Like, it's happening already, but like,
Gonna be the next normal though.
Yeah. But it was like really important for me, like, because I can get lost, and he talked about that, like getting like kind of He's
Yeah.
like, I study this stuff too much. He would talk about that
You're in a
frequently.
loop.
Yeah, just like you're sort of surrounded by it and saturated by it. And uh, you know, uh, he always like voiced out like, can it cause problems to do that? And so I'm not in any fear of that. I actually enjoy, my practice deeply. And at the same time, I think I'm just backing up to say that like there's a lot of other really great practitioners out there. Brooke Mullen and I talk all the time. She's out in Vermont. She's excellent pole star and her reflections, and she's a Chinese medicine practitioner. There's quite a few people that are impacted by this, and maybe they haven't been studying as consistently, but like I think my motivation is just to be, hey guys, let's do this, and so that's kind of like coming here and talking and serving as a table for like people know, okay, full moon's coming, can I make it? Like maybe I came in this time, and like maybe they plan ahead and maybe they come forward and they talk about like what this tradition means for them, because it's a lot, and so getting more voices involved is, I think, pretty vital.
To that point, would it be of value to get other traditions like a Vedic astrologer, Persian astrologer?
Oh, I'm all down for that. I mean, I'm ignorant of those ways, but I am very much tapped into view. I have philosophical training. I went to Cal. Like I studied philosophy at Cal. Like so, I know how to be nerdy, and also, those traditions, like they teach you to be like cross comparative, right? But not really. They're reductionists, right? So not cross comparative in the way like Ming would talk about, because he rooted everything he was talking about in history, and I think that's the ultimate cross comparative studies is history, not necessarily philosophy. So yeah, I mean, I would love it just because I have those kinds of dialogues with people who study those things. It's like, well, at this particular time, Neptune is da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, I don't know about Neptune. I'm not sure about Neptune, but like in the sequence of time, because this system is not astronomical, it's just continuous, right? So there was historically a point in time in which, of course, the Chinese tradition was concerned about like what Neptune was doing. But ultimately, it became more of a dialogue about time and math and relationship, because the nature of Chinese thought is not, essence as much as it is relationship. Like everything in relatedness. Like for instance, Ming would say, there is no one. There's no recognizable one. There's three. Yeah, that's where things really start. Two things come together and make a third. Just like any relationship, right? So we come together and we have an interaction, and both of us have a perception of that interaction, but it's the fact of the relatedness itself that actually is where actually the juice is. That's actually where, that's what our experience says, and our experience is part of, it's a cosmological principle. It's not just like, our relative, not just our relative condition. It's a cosmological principle at the same time. It's what we can expect.
It's the thing that I'm always saying that I learned from watching Sinbad, the other comedian. The great philosopher Sinbad, when he was talking about relationships, he's like, two becoming one, that's subtraction. He's talking about 1 and 1 makes 3. Yeah, 1 and 1 makes 3. So big shout out to Sinbad. Okay.
Wow.
Not enough windbreakers and tea. So
Sinbad.
It's a Sinbad.
Sinbad.
2 becoming 1. That's subtraction. I don't do that.
Two things come together, make a third. And then that third looks for another 2 to make a third, right?
Hey.
So segue. into talking about the ninth moon. Going back to maybe yin and yang, just like talking about yin and yang principles, right? That we're in a yang year, water yang, and we're moving through these kind of cycles of yin and yang in expression. This is we went from yin earth rooster into yang metal dog. Dog itself is natively earth, yang earth, and represents the transition, between autumn and the initiation of winter, right? So what's special, about dog moon and why it's actually incredibly expansive is because it's this kind of recognition process. We're going much closer in now. Like it was kind of a suggestion over the last 2 moons, right? Hey, you should probably get that together. You should probably prepare, start conserving. No rush. But eventually you want to think about it. Yeah. And the ninth moon is like pencils down. Ninth moon is like, it's full stop. We're done. And it's that, as Ming talked about, it's like in some calendars, it's the end of the year. So it's a simultaneous end of the year and new beginning, right? Jewish calendar is the end of the year. It's New Year's Eve, New Year's, just happened. Rosh Hashanah. That's good. So, for all the Jewish brothers and sisters.
I mean, that's when we did our talk. I was on my way to Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, how was it?
It was great. It could have been more food.
More food? There wasn't enough food?
No, I mean,
wait, but there could have been more.
no, there wasn't enough food. I mean, it was more like just like hummus and chips and cookies and stuff. And
there was no like actual buffet.
No.
Right. That's the portrait of satisfaction. No duck.
I got to see I'm doing a little piece on an old Torah that they rescued from Poland from the Nazis were coming in, burning all the Torahs. They rescued this one out of Poland. So that was really cool.
Another tradition that's like very much steeped in history. And tradition, momentum of that, so this moon represents their end and new beginning. So the idea is that like that you're recognizing that like, okay, it's time to wrap it up, and also knowing that like, okay, see you tomorrow, right? Like it's like, well, we're not done, we have things to do, and we should start thinking about maybe, okay, process, how did this go? Like, how did this year go? What would we want to continue? Don't have to think so hard about it because you have all winter to kind of like digest things. But it's more about like just what's the first hit? How do we bring the events of this year home? Right. And so there's the image of like a storehouse. So there's multiple images happening in this room, in this moon. It's like super rich and at the same time, incredibly intimate, immediately intimate, We've gone away from this accounting process towards something much closer, so that she has been going down and in, and now it's like, okay, it's all close. It's all right here, so how we experience other people is just going to be much more sensitive. And that transition was like immediate for me. I don't know, like if people were paying attention to the beginning of the moon, but it was like very potent shift, because the elemental arrangements and the relationship between dog and tiger is much more friendly. So the previous moons, the earth monkey and the earth rooster, as with the images we were using there, were like, okay, it's a sandcastle that you've built and like but the tide is coming. And so in the metal dog moon, that's when the tide came in, right? And it, came in pretty forcefully for some, working with this like very strong, features of intimacy. Because normally you'd think about dog as like a time for, okay, bring everybody in, make it regular, make it, not very exciting, just like secure. Let's secure everything. That's a really difficult thing to do in a tiger year. So and because it's a metal dog, then you have this more, you've been having this more negotiation, more potential for editing of those sort of intimate relationships. Really, really potent. And the way I describe that from a yin and yang perspective is that, yin and yang balance is not 50-50, right? It's not even close, right? It's we use this Tai Chi symbol, to demonstrate the relationship of yin and yang, but this is not proportion. This is process, meaning that when you predominantly have one thing, what's behind that is the other thing. And when you have that thing, what's behind that is this. So it's this notion that like one thing is constantly changing into the other. So Tai Chi symbol is not proportions, it's process. Proper balance between yang and yin, something like, 90-10.
I realized I needed a sound effect for it. like mine just blown right there, just like sound effects, because that landed.
Oh, it's
not proportion, it's process.
Right. It's the relationship.
More yin than yang, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, way more yin. In fact, that's one of the reasons why summer is so dangerous, is because environmentally you have more yang than yin. And that's why you have to kind of get through it and make sure that you're preserving, your vital, so not burning out. Right. So it's good for people in the summer, cool down, rest, don't do hard work under the sun, like, right?
Yeah.
Hard work under the sun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like
You're surrounded by water on a volcano.
I mean,
Sorry.
I mean, I'm a very young person,
Mhm.
and so most of my life is writing poetry and working out indoors, and I spend a lot. It's like I'm drawn towards the yin things,
Right.
music and stuff like that.
Right.
But but lately I've been around a lot of, it's like what I'm always making fun of white people and the desires to stand in the full sun. They love that more than anything, whether it's Burning Man or golf. It's like, I just want full sun. And I'm like, well, I don't understand that. It's so counterintuitive to our existence. Like, it's weird to me.
Right.
But it's just a showing of our disconnection to the cycles.
Right.
And then also talking about the cycles, it's like we're also disconnected, because I've talked to a lot of people, athletes, that feel like they're losing something. I'm like, no, just be okay with going into winter.
Right.
Like you're supposed to do that to let things die off to where the new things can come back.
Right.
Like that's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And but I've been
transformation.
all the bodywork sessions and stuff I've been to, it's like a lot of people that are going through that, they're fighting winter.
Right.
They think they're losing something.
Right.
As opposed to,
well, I mean,
calming down.
Or
that it's not.
You could also say like, yeah, you are losing.
Yeah.
something.
You should
be losing something. Like
yeah.
you can't hold on to this. It's kind of like constantly trying to dress up in the gear that you wore when you were 20 and go down to the pub when you're 64.
Well, yeah,
like, it's pathetic. That's what it is.
It's like party theory that I always talk about. No one wants to be that 30-year-old kick party, even though I still have all my baby teeth. Just kidding.
What is that for? No one wants to be the 30-year-old at a cake party.
Yeah.
Right.
Even worse to be the 40-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless
you're bringing the cake.
unless you're
and then you're leaving like
cool
right
neighbor.
after. Okay, you guys good? All right. See ya. Don't call me after 10:30. I'll be asleep.
Yeah.
It's hysteria. and it leads to like very disconnected and even pathetic behavior.
How you guys like this tea?
This is intense, by the way. This is rarely do I taste tea.
This is incredible. That's why I like had to down that so I can get some more. That was
Yeah, I'm not don't have that educated kind of.
What? We got 7 participants
What?
right now.
what kind of tea is it? You said there's 4 in there.
4 types of pu'er.
There's 4 types of pu'er.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's 2 raw from the 70s and 2 ripe from the 80s.
Love
Yeah.
That's fair.
Everything is wrong. So.
All right.
And very few things are still raw. From the
Those are the people that
70s.
never shouldn't go to the keg.
Yeah,
parties.
they haven't lost anything.
That's us.
Yeah.
Really quick, let's give a shout out to Boris. Hey,
Oh,
Boris. What's going on, Boris? Kathy.
No, no, this is Sherbakov.
Kathy's in the house. Mary Constance is in the house. My wife, Najia. Hi, honey.
Is she it?
And then Natalie.
Oh, that's my neighbor.
Won't you be?
Shout out to those tacos. Yeah.
Oh, you got a taco?
Yeah.
So the yin, growth of yin. I was trying to remember where I was going with that. Growth of yin requires, okay, so yin, that's the season that we're in, right? So how do we match or mirror, growth of yin? And yin comes in initially to erode, right? Yang qi has ascended, like reached the outer heavens, right? And then yin at that turning point of the equinox comes out from inside, right, to inspire the collapse. And so we go through this process of the collapsing that's happening. And then by the time we're getting to this point, the exchange has already happened. So equinox is just ended. Today is the first day of the new chi node, which is the cold dew, I think it's called. I can't remember the Chinese name right now, but and that is, it's sort of telegraphing. Autumn is telegraphing winter. Here it comes, you can see the punch coming. So that's a little bit and there's plenty of poetic, the first dew in the morning or in the evening becomes this sort of elixir of immortality.
Yeah.
At that time. And this is the first day of that. So today, in particular, denotes this kind of end of harvest season. Storehouse doors are closed. Okay, no late entry. You're in. And if you're out, you better find out where to be. Right? So this is a little bit okay, don't panic, but actually it's time to get serious. And so from this point on, especially in the next few days, there's a little bit more about a call for sacrifice, this idea that you that you'd be willing to be available to that. What was the different word that I was using? Let me try to remember it. But young metal dog is a kind of editing process of the remaining yang qi, right? We don't want to get rid of it, we need it, to survive through the winter and through growth of yin. All we need is a little bit, right? So when we get into the really dark moons, we're trying to preserve the candle, right? Keep the candle lit. But at this time, it's kind of more of an editing process so that, what kind of yang qi you're willing to preserve. What do you want to take with you? Because you can't take it all, right? So you can only take a little bit. And so the idea and the reason why it's related to dogs and ancestors and things of that nature is that if you're getting that close in and sort of looking at your primordial constitution, inspiration, that kind of primordial, quintessential yang qi, then you're obviously talking about ancestors. And there is a connection between how you walk in the world and the precedents that they give you. the inspiration in your chest is like a is like future fertility, right? You don't want to go in the winter completely uninspired. You may not make it out. So like, what are you taking in with you, and where does that come from? You know, it has roots somewhere is the point. And it's the reason why this particular moon, the dog chi, is like related to that kind of ancestral influence. That you didn't just do this on your own. Like you should see that now, you know, like all the things that you did this year that you were really inspired about, you want to put a lot of effort in, the things you really want to carry forward. You needed all kinds of help, and you need all these other people to kind of join in with you as a community. And all of those motivations have like their own precedence toward where this person comes from, this kind of tribal relationship, and all of these things, like the different, you know, family arrangements that we have. Where it's like you need to secure those things, like before the lights really go out. Is the idea. So, so there's this kind of editing process. For some people, it's kind of uncomfortable. You know, like you're really like, okay, so you, you and me, okay. You know, like do we need to say some things here? You know, like, do we need to figure some things out? It could be like that.
Well, hopefully it was all set over COVID, and now we learned how to have a 2-year winter. So now this is our basic one again.
Right.
Back to an actual just winter.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this for a long time. It's like, what did we learn from COVID? Like, what did did our behaviors change at all?
Yeah, we became complainers that are obsessed with story around the news and our own opinions.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
I didn't.
We are hysterical by nature. Like in this culture in particular, it's very hysterical. Oh yeah, that was the word. It wasn't sacrifice, just surrender. Same, surrender. Like, yeah, it's time to surrender.
Can I say something about surrender?
Yeah.
It's not to confuse that with a passive act.
No, yeah, very much. Yeah. No. It's if you don't actively surrender now, then when you get to like deep winter and you're you know, and then you're doing that kind of passive action, then you really sink, you know.
Yeah.
Like then you're not really able to tread water. Other people have to come rescue you. In this case, like the surrendering is like, yeah, I just don't have the room for that anymore. So whatever I have to do, you know, to cut it loose or finish it out. Like I got $20. How much more can I get? You know, like, and that's it, you know, and then you have to really call it quits.
Yeah.
And say, well, we didn't get all the way there, but maybe next year, you know, instead of like, you know, Ming is say like, if you're looking to like, if right now you're looking to push your aspirations, you have aggressive aspirations at this time, you have a double problem. There's no chi to support it. And what you're drawing on in order to do it is straining all your organs, is straining all your relationships. and it so it's just, you know, it's entrenching, you know, a kind of pattern at a time, what's very interesting from a health perspective, where things are relaxing. It's not just you that's, you know, it should relax. Everything is relaxing, which means all your previous illnesses and chronic conditions also start to relax. You know, so if there's a window here, you know, in order for treatment, you know, but if you're continuing to propagate straining, or you're treating people in such a way that says, okay, now you can go back to work.
Interesting, because in our cycles of practice, we talk about qigong for the spring, hard kung fu for the summer, medicine in the fall. to recuperate from the hard training of summer to
Right.
prepare
Right.
for the meditation of winter. So it's spring, Qigong, and
Mhm.
next cycle.
Mhm.
So cool. I haven't heard of medicine in the fall in the context. So awesome.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a Ming, that, like, at this particular time, the transition into intertwining of yin and yang is such that, like, yin is being receptive. And at this time, because we've got this yang dog, even, yin and yang symbol, in the receptivity that's growing, there's a part of it that's like, like, and that part is relaxing. And that's the assessment of, like, the yang qi that we're carrying into the fall. There's an opportunity here to sort of edit something that could be a little tight. Yeah. And to get it to relax to the point that, I don't know, you're trying to kill it. You're just trying to give it a natural way for it to go, for its own resolution. Right. So there's always a relationship between fall and spring treatment. When you give that, especially between dog and tiger, right? When you open the door for something to relax, and then in the tiger moon, you give it a chance to escape. But if you're just pressing forward in this time, then you're basically creating a boundary around the thing, a really tense boundary, this like hard, rigid kind of place. And you think that that's preserving your yang, grasping. Like, no, maybe not. Like, not to say that there aren't some places where, like, okay, like fluidity and tension, right? Same in kind of dialogue through the process of winter. You might need to, that's like, they say, stay warm, like during this time. And going into yin, stay warm. Like, so don't be idle. Don't just like, it's time to go. Like,
Yeah.
I have to completely just give it up, and then you're not eating, and people have to come bring you food, which they do because they love you, but like, you're not like, you're not helping them. You're not being.
Who is this person? They sound lame.
I'm pretty sure everybody knows one. That's incredible. I wish you guys could taste this. It's so good.
Keep enjoying it.
So this kind of surrendering process, it's really really important, mostly for those people who haven't done any editing, right? They've just been righteous like this entire time, right? So even through the early autumn, they've gotten to this point, and then the bottom really starts to fall out, and that's when they're like, that's when the reality hits, and you actually have to surrender, and choices are made for you instead of a choice that you can make, because it takes a lot longer to recover from a choice that you didn't make, than it does to actually digest the choice that you made. Like to say that I'm going to let this go.
Well, that's
but
what we
you have
go to the stress, don't let it come to you.
Yeah, or you often say like nature,
Yeah.
nature did, nature will just come and take it.
Yeah,
Like,
wisdom, seek wisdom, don't let wisdom find you first. Yeah.
So this is a pretty key time, especially in the next few days, where it's, some people could be, if anybody who's overextended, it's just going to be experience this kind of stripping process.
I've been not ghosted, but I'm doing a lot of workshops and stuff around, and I just got done working with a bunch of A-type people, and then there's like land developers and politicians and stuff. Just from out of nowhere, just a lot of them are just like, I just crumbled. I'm done for the next couple weeks. Like,
Right.
done. Like, it's just kind of like, let's call it.
Yeah, it's better to conclude
Yeah.
than collapse, right? So we've been saying that. Okay, so we have a new task. I gotta bring like a little widget board or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of covers it.
You have a chat open? Can people ask questions?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me open that up.
Everybody, open the question floor. Everybody's having questions in the chat.
Turn chat on.
Speaking of chat,
When you going to next?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Probably next week. Because
Alright.
I only like the weekend.
Okay, I think you guys are free to chat and like talk now. You're now free to walk about the cabin.
Nah.
For our Zoom patrons, there's this trick where you just press the space bar. Oh, maybe don't chat though, because we can't read that. Oh, that's my wife. Oh, hearts. Oh, I want tacos. Matt said tacos.
Those tacos are still good.
Now tell me those tacos are good.
I'll take the hearts.
Yeah.
Banter. Let's see. No chats. Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
I think it's very clear. I think most people feel it actually. It's like, get it together.
Well, it's weird right now because it's like, I mean, personally, I'm out here as it pushed to, I'm going deep in the,
You're in service.
well, yeah, and I'm going way into like a winter, like we're holding up in a, on a homestead, just, out
Right.
for a while. And so but I'm here and there's so much work to get everything, it's like stockpiling for winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's still, it's just more stressful and more strenuous, when done maybe later than the calendar would have suggested, but that's kind of like this is sort of to the point. I mean, there's nothing about this heritage and tradition that is, the word of God, so like culture suggestion, it's pretty strong, suggestions, but you have to connect with it. You find the value by practicing, right? Like anything martial art related, or this is this is a contemplative practice. This is not, discerning the will of God. That's mostly my point. And like, so the value comes as you engage it, and also I think it's helpful because it helps us recognize where we actually are. As we talked about a lot of time, every single culture on the planet makes a set of assumptions. And for me, the most dangerous culture on the planet is the one whose primary assumption is they don't make any. And that happens to be the one that we're in. They're very convinced, that just their process and the techniques that they use, that we use in this culture, are just self-evident. Rather than like, well, no, it's just a set of assumptions, and it could be valid, like useful, but there's no real kind of built-in humility in that process. And so not only is it incredibly destructive, but it's also, materially, environmentally, but emotionally, personally, like we have no format or means of which to process and relate to our own experience or the experience of other people. It's like very tense, harsh. Everybody constantly looking for the one true whatever, and we're missing all the information. It's just flowing right by. But eventually it kind of builds up, and then you're like, wow, it's getting really tough for me to run 6 miles a day. But maybe because it's December, like you should stop. Like I remember so many times you told me, like, I think I hurt myself. You're like, you should stop.
Yeah, stop.
Like, what? I can't stop.
Well, I was talking to someone today about the idea they're going through an injury, and it's like this is an opportunity to build a new skill of stillness, a skill of breathing. There's a million other And a skill of stopping. Stopping is a skill. Like that's a literal skill. That most
Righteousness
of us
is very
have to.
important when
Yeah.
you're going downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we
stop.
need to build that as a skill. And know you're not losing anything, because when you hurt yourself, it gives you the rare opportunity to actually readjust your baseline.
Right.
And you can raise your baseline, but you should raise the awareness of your baseline, not the actual. It's like I used to run 10 miles a day. I blew my knee out. So now the next thing is your baseline isn't 10 miles a day. You're now aware of your knees when you run. That's your new baseline.
Right.
And so there's a difference between an ambitious awareness versus actual awareness, right? So we're just a bunch of goal setters nourishing the fruit. We don't nourish the soil, which is your knee. You know what I mean? Like, which is you. And so
we
it's
talked
interesting to watch.
Yeah, last year, like tend to the tree and not to the fruit.
Mhm, mhm.
Right. That's an excellent lesson for any year,
Yeah.
But this is like this particular moon is a really good time to do that because with nourishing the tree now, right, means that in spring.
Yeah.
That's always the connection between fall and spring is profound, because there is it's like seed crop. If we're using agricultural metaphors here, it's like we got a bunch of harvests, we got it all in the storehouse. Can't eat it all.
Yeah.
Because you need to plant 20% of it. So there's a lot of different ways to relate to that, which is I only plant, I plant 40% or I plant 20 and then hold on to the other 20 because I'm scared, and I, starve, or I don't share. There's so many different ways you can relate to this notion of harvest and bounty. Right now we have a revelatory tradition, so our relationship to abundance is that it's somehow related to manifestation of some kind that has no
Your ego.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. There's abundance of everything.
and it's rooted in like this kind of pathological aggression. So there isn't a kind of exaggeration of our capacities. So we're like kind of constantly pushing, and whoever can push the hardest is obviously deserving of abundance, right?
There's the nourish the tree, not the fruit thing. I just did that presentation to a bunch of lawyers and doctors.
Oh yeah.
And they had a really hard time understanding abstract ideas. They needed just facts and spreadsheets. And I was like, no one changes anyone through facts and no one learns through facts. And so I was telling stories, and they, after 3 weeks of running the slides, they took that slide out of the deck because they just didn't understand it. Because they're all about the goal, set the goal, achieve the goal. And so when I was talking to them about connecting to nature and cycles, they were like, I don't like that. And so they just took it out. They're like, we don't want this in there.
Well, it's funny. I was just listening to this particular lecture of Ming's actually talking about rationality, reason. That we and it's something that we completely prize and identify our whole personhood and culture around this notion of rationality and reason, and that we assume that there's only one kind. That there is, and based like it's all about logic, and you can break it down, but it basically comes down to annihilate something, to its like basic components, strip every relationship out of the situation. You just kind of deconstruct and break things down. This kind of analysis, which is combative, who can be either the most persuasive, who can be, the most and the most aggressive about the points that they make, which in this kind of deconstructing process, right? And then in the Confucian model, rationality is how things come together. Like that's actually reason is used to bring things together. Like how do things connect? How do they relate? And it's meant to be, and it's assumed to be relative thinking. And that's not a problem. It's just the situation that we have right now. So if, 4 more people came in and sat down, whole dynamics would be different. Would it be better or worse? Up to you.
Depends on if those people were whack or fresh.
Right, exactly. Or where this at.
I was just about to say, you just downloaded.
I didn't know. For a minute there, I thought you were playing with Bitcoin or something.
I saw all these little things. I was like, this is good. We gotta.
Oh, nice. I like that one.
No, he?
Things just got real.
Yeah. It's like trying to do a presentation with a dragon, a monkey, and a rat.
Oh, you're a monkey.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting in the middle of a trine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
You are ganged up on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how I
Okay,
feel
that's-
all the time.
That's gonna be me.
There was in that presentation, they were talking about abundance, and then they asked me to kind of come in from, on the last guy, and kind of work on integration. And they were talking about abundance, the typical like secret kind of, corporate law of attraction stuff. And one of the things that I was talking to them about was it's energy. There's abundance of energy in the world, and we're trying to tune into it. But they're like, and I was like, but nature can be pretty brutal. And they were like, no, nature gives you everything you want. And I'm like, dude, I'm living on a volcano right now. Like that's intense. And then they were talking about, well, nature with food and the beautiful fruits. And it's like, most of the planet will kill you if you don't have great training. And then in that moment, I literally
You don't have to
just,
go very far to find that.
yeah. And the day before, or 2 days before that was the day that all the like wild boars, abundance of wild boars run on the land, start stomping baby pigs, and then male horses kick 3 other baby horses to death. And I mean, it was like, yeah, there is abundance, but it's just an abundance of energy. And if we're not stewards of that, it can get pointed in many different directions, but there is an abundance of it. And, we hopefully can,
Yeah, I think that
cue the Sting song. I hope the Russians love their children too.
yeah, the relationship to nature at this point, obviously, I mean, I think everybody could agree the reason why there's maybe even interest in these sorts of ways is that our sense of self, or our relationship to nature and each other and the culture is like kind of up for question, like it's not working. Is basically what most people are feeling. It's like, I don't know how we change.
It's a little one-sided.
Yeah.
I don't think we're listening. I don't think we're listening.
Yeah,
we're bad listeners.
Yes, yeah. There's difficulty. There's tension. There's
Yeah.
tension in the room.
Yeah, there is tension.
There's got to be a sound effect for that.
That baby laughing. Yeah.
So like, but what's interesting to me is that a lot of people are looking for another way. We just need to figure it out, either figure it out or figure out another way to like hold it. Who's got the answer? Somebody's got the answer. And like kind of searching in that way. And just personally, I feel like if you're just looking for the next thing that's going to dominate, like, and maybe I think it'll just slow us down in terms of what we actually maybe need. Like, and it's kind of like I don't get too discouraged when I think about how, Ming would say, like, human beings aren't very important to nature, like we're not occupying a special place really. So the invitation is to kind of relax, and it's hard to relax with a bullhorn. Don't give the monkey the toy.
I've never actually seen anyone so. I mean, I've been proud of myself before, but this is,
Yeah, this is a
good.
special moment. I think it's a combination of the tea and the bullhorn. Yeah.
Oh, we got
I wonder-
we got chats. Am I being disruptive?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how loud is this in relation to this?
I have a question. Okay, let's take it serious. Take the toy away from the monkey. Here we go. I have a question from last month's talk. Okay, this is from MP Mary Parks. All right. Remember a mention of how each month has its own spring, summer, fall, and winter. Right. Does that ring a
bell? Yes.
I should like learn which ones are what.
That's a long bell.
Yeah,
That was a long
I'm gonna
bell.
figure these sound effects out.
Yeah, we'll have it simplified. You
Yeah.
get two.
Okay, so each moon has its own season.
Well, this is I could geek out on this all day. So in examining the Tongshu and digesting the Tongshu and looking at the Tongshu, it's a very old document, right? So some with many indicators in it, and some of those indicators are several thousand years old, unchanged, right? In particularly, the lunar mansions themselves are the ones that are the most unchanged over time. There's like several different, versions of the Tongshu available. And, I'm using the one that Ming left behind, but there are actually other versions, slightly different. I don't think it's particularly significant, the difference, because again, we're not hunting for details. We're not, what matters about the Tongshu is that you're in a sequence. And so if you're in a troublesome place, it's just about knowing when things get smooth again. That's the assumption, is that like, all you have to do is just wait. It's kind of like being lost in your room because it's dark, but really all you have to do is just wait for the sun to come up. Like that would be the invitation of the tradition in the Tongshu, is so like, don't panic, make do with what you have in this particular moment and wait for the right wait for the right time to kind of switch directions. So technically speaking, the lunar mansions run in the sequence of the seasons within each moon. So there's a spring week, and then it goes winter. So because it's a different tradition, the way it turns is clockwise or counterclockwise, not clockwise. So in our tradition, we're generative, we're progressive. Like we want things to, go to a place of evolution, go to a place of like this kind of apex, and then maybe, dissolve and collapse, and then we can do it again, and that kind of thing. Tongshu doesn't do that. Like it kind of goes this way, and then it kind of looks like it's doing this, and then it jags and comes down, and, then goes cross town and whatever, right? So it's for the first week of any new moon isn't necessarily spring. In some cases it's like the fall, or it could be like this particular moon. Well, this particular moon did start out in the spring week, but they don't always do that. So it goes spring, the first week of if you start anywhere, you could start with spring, the direction of spring, which is the azure dragon. It's like this blue-green dragon. It represents the wind and the east. And it brings 7 days, the 7 days of the 28-day lunar mansions. The first 7 days of spring are 7 different types of ways to start, to begin. And there's a big dialogue and expression about like, what does it mean to be initiated? What does it mean to like have an appetite for something? How do you go from somebody who's just crazy skilled at being a shaman to somebody who can be a doctor? Mm-hmm. It's a very different process. So there's all these kinds of nuances in how you begin something and how you move towards somebody who actually has some kind of capacity, right? And then when the week that follows that is winter, where everything just goes to crazy. Like so you maybe build some confidence in that first week, and then the second week just basically says, this is all the things that go wrong. And then you're like having to deal with all the things that could possibly go wrong. while also, at the beginning of that week, stating and manifesting, like putting in forward your intention, right? So you collect maybe confidence, maybe feel like you've grown, gotten something, right? Feel like have some capacity. And then that first day of the winter direction, which is the ZhenWu, is to say, this is my intention. This is how I want to manifest these things that maybe I have some confidence with. And then everything goes to shit. These are all the different things that can happen that go wrong. And so you have to be challenged, is this idea is like, you're not in control. You think you know something. Great. Like this is life coming in, nature coming in, showing all different things that can go wrong. And what you get out of that process, right? Which there's pieces of that in the first week too. So it's not, these things bleed into each other. It's not like a static. That's why it's a sequence. You might be in a really kind of particularly difficult day as opposed to as described by the lunar mansions. But not every lunar mansion is actually the same size. Some of them are only 3, 4, or 5 hours long, right? Whereas other ones are like a couple of days. But we give each one of them a whole day. Because it's generally assumed that's because the emphasis is it's a sequence, don't get caught up on the details, like actually just participate in the sequence. Yeah, this is a rough day, like take a nap. Yeah. Like come back. And like I could feel it, like tomorrow's supposed to be a little bit of an iffy day, right? The surrender thing kind of kicks in. And we're sliding toward this kind of wintry, big, dark kind of energy. And personally, I could feel that writing here, like there was a shift in the hour of this particular day, even before the day, the next day started, where it's kind of hinting at that, be home before dark suggestion, like you don't want to be out late. And that's generally true going forward now. And you really want to be home, be someplace secure and familiar pretty much every day going forward. Like don't mess around, like no late nights at the pub.
Especially in Oakland.
No. I just took it over.
Scott just witnessed the power.
Yeah.
He's drunk now with power.
And then continuing and answering the actual question. The third week is the autumnal week, and that's the direction of the white tiger.
Autumnal?
Oh, yeah, the week of
It's autumn.
Yeah.
Third week's autumn.
Third week's autumn. Yeah.
Autumnal.
Yeah, great word.
It's all right. I'm just kidding. Take it or leave it.
So and that's the consideration that like more or less to say, the direction of the chi is shifting, much like it is the season. It's about your inner fortitude. It's about the power that you have inside, not how much money you have, right? Not like the actual external resources that you have, but like what are my capacities, my actual capacities as a human being, so that's the sort of it's the direction of autumn is in and down, so that you can experience every week, every moon. There is an autumn week that sort of suggests that.
Here was another in that presentation that I did. They took out the liberation through limitation thing because they thought when I was saying limitation, it was all about limited beliefs. And I was like, no, it was about limiting all the external things so you can actually not be so influenced, because our culture now is monkey mind. And so it's reacting to stimulus.
Scatterbrain.
Yeah. And so I was talking to them about like, oh shit, he's searching for it.
Yeah. Where's the scatterbrain one?
So the cow said, so, all right, guys, I got a lot of pressure here because I got to get the right words out to get the sound effect. But yeah, I was talking, they didn't like liberation through limitation. And I was like, no, like look at monks and look at, going into a writer's hole, like
the less you need, the more
yeah. And I was like, it was limitation so you can bring out what's inside you. And they were,
yeah.
so they totally Is there, there is a hawk inside all of us. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the, in what's interesting about that is in the third week and in the autumn week, also again reflected in these autumn moons, this particular moon in general, the dog moon is this relationship to ancestor presence. Your righteousness and your capacity, it's always understood to have a precedent. If you want to claim ownership of that, like good luck, like
How do we dive into I don't know anything of ancestors. Ancestors, go.
let me think of your chart. Oh, yeah,
I'm
you're
not talking about my ancestors.
well, it might depend on someone's faith. Like, because if you don't necessarily have, like, for instance, my natal chart doesn't have a very strong connection to my ancestors, but there is a presence. But it's more by choice.
Okay.
For me. Like some people are literally like the hand puppets of their ancestors.
Okay.
Like they look like them. They have all the same appetites. Like they basically, you look like your dad. Like, I mean, it's very obvious. They're meant to be carbon copies of the people they came from.
Maceo.
Yeah. So the that kid. So yeah. So there's as many ways as relate to the ancestors as you can to your family. And the problem with the culture that we're in is that we don't have protocols for that. We don't even because we're a nation of immigrants, and we said later to my ancestors, because that's the reason why we're here, is because we rejected them.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So we have a whole culture that's kind of built around this discomfort,
And hyper individualism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you can't, they're still there. It's just if you take that kind of attitude toward them, I think the image that Ming said is like you're missing out on the good stuff, and you're highlighting the ones around back that are hanging out, and those are the ones that come get you when you die.
Yeah.
Not the ones that are like the grandma, that like knew how, knew what you needed, when you were sick, like it's the closest analogy to relate to your ancestors that I've been taught, or thinking of them as like your grandparents or your great grandparents. They were the ones that kind of gave you the big picture of life, where you felt the closest affinity. And it's mostly because if you think about your grandparents, they're basically on the way out as you're coming in. So you're sharing something there, right? You eventually become your parents' peer.
No. I have ancestors.
Of course.
I mean,
yours are actually fairly old. They speak different languages.
that makes sense.
But they're brutal.
Mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
no easy lessons in my life.
right. Yeah.
Self-soothing.
Yeah. But immensely proud. Hard not to be.
Well, how about this? At our time.
And then just to complete the question is to say that, that autumnal week then, because it's a very important transition. This autumnal week suggests like sort of these ancestral influences, because what we're drawing upon is this much more, not material power, but immaterial power, yin power. We're going into a time where yin power is actually where it's all at. So that means knowing how to withdraw, how to surrender, also how to draw up, this kind of like a sense of inspiration, momentum, like security, good judgment. Where does good judgment come from? I think everybody knows good judgment is not a calculus.
Ancestors.
Most of the time.
That's what I just learned.
It's
good judgment comes from ancestors.
Yeah, it's not a calculus. We're not ultimately, good judgment is not about weighing pros and cons and making like the materialistic right choice. You go with your gut. We value that. And that is absolutely an ancestral influence. So we go through all this process and we learn, the protection that kind of comes with being able to surrender. I don't put myself at risk.
Well, that's the going with the gut. I mean, that's a skill in itself. And we have lost a lot of that.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
we have so much outside influence clouding our ability to stop and feel.
And it's always somebody else's fault why we fail.
Well, yeah, I mean, blame, it's the cure all.
I mean, the thing our culture does incredibly well is we idolize and we criticize.
Yeah.
Those are the two things we love to do. In fact, we may idolize somebody so hard to the point so that we can take them down.
Oh, and also think of like the the way that we pit ourselves against each other is through our righteous moral high grounds that aren't based in moral framework.
I mean, it's it's all
Yeah.
rhetoric.
Yeah.
And then, so we learn how to do more with less. We learn how to actually be responsible with our resources in such a way as we become successful. Because the notion of success in the Chinese tradition is that it's cheng. Cheng means cheng in the philosophic sense is it has a yen as the radical, and then the phonetic is cheng, which means to be complete, right? It means that your words you match your actual situation, and but we're a culture of like credit, debt's not a problem. That's not the old way. The old way is that like, oh, I actually have this and my ambition is this, and these are my steps, and I'm going to stay with it in this kind of responsible way. And I'm going to let everybody see me go each step.
Transparency.
And I'm going to struggle, and that's okay, but I'm here. And then that gives everybody else a chance to be like, I believe in you. What do you need? Hey, can we expand this? Can we make it big? Can everyone join in? This is great benefit. This is the very definition of great benefit. That you're not just doing like whatever solo project completely on your own. You can't stop it from being big. And then all of a sudden, like, all these other people are succeeding and somehow great things happen, but nobody can take credit. That's the best thing that could possibly happen. Somebody might like, didn't this all start with your idea? Oh yeah, I forgot, and you're just willing to like let it continue. But it's that transparency that's a big part of success, and that we learn how to do more with less during this autumnal time. And then it transforms, and the invitation is, now you know what it means to be in alignment with precedent. And that's the final week, which is the week of summer. And that's the voice of the authority of our ancestors. That, this is the place where we don't need to double check. Like, this is just how things are done. And like, there are like these really beautiful days of communication that transcend sort of dimensions, not just our own, but like ancestral dimensions. It's actually quite rich. And there's like kind of like, okay, there's these moments of like, don't push too hard. Okay. And just kind of checking and being okay with making mistakes, because we're kind of in this place where we're really actively listening and engaged. Because it's not just us, it's everything that came before us. And then that basically closes the loop of the 28-day cycle. And then we start it all over again. Hey, I've got a great idea. And that's, you go back to the dragon and this kind of like raw inspiration that has absolutely no boundaries. And then you go through the whole 28 days all over again. And so that's what was meant by the fact that every moon has a kind of quality to it in relationship to the year. But within that moon, there are these 28-day lunar indicators that have that voice that will modify like what is available. The 28 lunar indicators is basically how any particular moon expresses. Like, that is actually the vocabulary that the moon is actually using. So yeah, I think the first thing I said when I sat down with my first meeting, I was like, I'd be content to do this alone. Just because it's very rich, like you can't, but then as we said at the top of the hour, it's like, but then you get into these spaces of like being isolated, insular, and kind of weird,
Yeah.
So it's good to talk it out with other people.
Really, the applause is that long, but the bell is like a 3-minute.
There's another one where I gotta figure this one out.
Is there a laugh track on there? There we go.
That's a good one. But that's like Johnny Carson coming out.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, so this one's long.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions?
Let's check. Any more questions in the chat? Gems on gems. So much gratitude. We got a bunch of chats here, actually. Let's see what's going on. Probably telling me to shut up with sound effects. Beautiful. Mary likes it.
Liking it.
Wow, Mary doesn't like anything. She like you nailed it.
Hey, well, she showed up. That's all I
Yeah,
need.
yeah, yeah. Mary is a tough cookie.
Mary comes in.
Well, loved ones, that's it for our dog moon, full moon. Join us next month for
That's right, big. That's right.
first moon of winter, 10th moon of the year.
I expect everyone to be in their pajamas.
Velvet pajamas,
Yes, please. Yeah.
surrounded by pillows.
Right.
Next month is
Or in a bubble bath.
literally a big month.
Yeah, you'll be surrounded by pigs. This is a pretty gnarly, gnarly. It could be very serene, but it could also be, this pig has tusks next year.
Well, this pig's about to get his balls cut off. Because that's all we're doing next month. Just something. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's called education.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
See you next month.
Yeah, that's next week is all, or next month is castrating boars.
Really?
Just castrate, 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 castrate.